Welcome to Getting Rich Together, the show for successful women who are looking to take their financial futures to the next level. I'm your host, Shama Bunton. When I started my wealth building journey, nobody knocked on my door to give me all the answers. So I want to talk to the experts who've done it and bring the answers to you so we can discover the right opportunities that will help us achieve the financial futures we've always dreamed of together and have fun doing it. So let's dive into this episode and start getting rich together. I am here today with the brilliant Stephanie Kwong. Stephanie, you are an incredible mastermind. And I don't just say that because you know how to help people understand how to master their own brains, how to master their lives, but ultimately because you are an entrepreneur and a founder and someone who's been able to employ many of these practices in your own life. And so it's so incredible to get to spend these next few minutes with you to really unpack and understand the beautiful life that led you to dedicating yourself to service of your own evolution and development and service to everyone else's evolution and development. Stephanie, welcome to Getting Rich Together. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, Shama, thank you so much for having me. I have been really excited for this conversation.
So Stephanie, we're not going to jump off talking about the ways in which we can rewire our brains, though, my gosh, I'm so eager to know all of the ways. And we're not going to jump in talking about how you've been a successful entrepreneur for over a decade now. Where we are going to start off is Stephanie from the beginning, with the young Stephanie, somewhere between the ages of 8, 12 years old, my love. What was life like for you? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? What were your parents like? And most importantly, what role did money play in your life that young?
Woo! We are opening up a can of worms, which I am so excited for. I love just getting real and raw and sharing truthfully our experiences of our past. And so I don't know if I could tell you exactly where I was from 8 to 12. Quite honestly, I had a pretty challenging childhood. And from my perspective of being a kid, it was challenging. And so a coping mechanism I created to endure feeling alone, abandoned, rejected, criticized, shamed, was to forget a lot of my childhood. And then what I did was I fantasized on top of it of what I wanted it to be. And I think I reran the fantasy so much in my head that I started to believe it. Now, fortunately, I've been doing a lot of deep inner work and I've been able to reveal truths of my past, of my childhood, that then I got to work on, but I don't have exact age time frames of where I was and what happened. But generally in that time, I have 2 parents who are immigrants who came from China. My mom came from Hong Kong, and they worked their butts off. And being a part of the Chinese culture has a very set way of conditioning our people, where our achievements equals our self-worth or our value, where they want us to succeed and be the best. So that's why it comes with a lot of harsh criticism and shaming. It's not because they mean to do it. It's just because they think that's the way to get you to excel or to be the best, right? And what you do is pointing out the parts that maybe weren't that great so that you be better. And I had a dad who worked really hard. And so when I talk about the abandoned piece, right, he was off working. And then my mom, she worked really hard too. And she worked a 6 a.m. shift as a phlebotomist at Kaiser. And so she would come into my bedroom in the morning and tell me that there's a chicken pot pie or something ready to go for breakfast by the time I got up. And she would leave for work for her shift. And so I'd wake up in an empty house with my brother and pack my own lunch, get everything ready, and then off I would go, right? So all the things I mentioned at the start, that's kind of what I mean by like feeling abandoned, feeling rejected, feeling, that criticism, that shame. And I don't ever blame my past because it's made me who I am. And yet as a child from that vantage point, it was difficult, because all kids want is love. And because my dad, he became very successful in the 70s is when I was born. And to him, going from this immigrant who came to the United States with, it was $300 in cash, $1,200 in traveler's checks, didn't speak the language, didn't know anybody in the United States. He dropped off in the Bay Area and he had to figure it out. He was the firstborn son of 8 kids and had to sponsor his entire family from China over to the United States. That's what he was tasked with. And he was 17. So all he knows is hard work. He was able to build a very successful business, became a multimillionaire in the late 70s. And I think for his way of showing love was buying things. It was through money, because also in our culture, it's not a very nurturing culture. The way they nurture is through food, is through making sure that you succeed. Quite honestly, it's the financial giving too, right? They're not very emotional. And so I didn't necessarily get that, but I started to think about love is money also. This is how he expressed it. We were very well-to-do when I was a child. And I mean, crazy things of like living in huge houses, having live-in nannies. On the days where my parents couldn't get us to school, we get in a limo and it drive us to school. Like, it was a very unusual childhood. And at 13, because you mentioned 8 to 12, but at 13, my parents split up. And so we went from having a significant amount of money with my dad to my mom struggling to raise 2 kids in a very wealthy neighborhood on her Kaiser, hospital salary that she was making. And it was a lot for her. So what I witnessed was, and I'm bringing in the money piece because I know that this is the focus of your podcast. It was like having all this money to then not. It was a big fall. And it was a very confusing thing for me too, because it was like, well, is that what love is? Is like getting money, giving money, because I didn't get in other ways, but then now we don't have it. So then it was all very confusing for me, which I had to unwind over time. Fortunately, I have an amazing mother who shockingly is an immigrant woman, dove into her own personal healing. This is also, you're saying, wow, people can't see your mouth. Yeah. Like, whoa. And it's because it's true, right? Like it's not a common thing, I think, for people in general. It's more now, but back then, people work on themselves, and especially when you're from another country, you don't even think about that. But I was very, very blessed that my mom took her own healing into her own hands. And so, as a young child, and during that time, I listened to Tony Robbins on tape in my house because she bought it off of his infomercial. And, now I'm like hearing Tony.
Oh, Mom.
I'm hearing Tony's voice booming in my house and telling me how to own my power and, take control. And then also watching her going to vision quests, working with a therapist, drum circles, making vision boards. So there was a lot of imprinting for me, starting at a young age too, seeing this and seeing what's possible, that change is possible. And yet, when we're young, because we're in a hypnotic state, meaning we are just open and suggestible to whatever people say, right? Your brain waves aren't formed yet. You don't have that logical reasoning, prefrontal cortex built yet. So whatever people are telling you, whatever you're watching, whatever misinterpretations of experiences that you create, that usually you make bad and wrong about yourself. My dad was working hard and my mom was working hard, and I made it mean about myself that I'm unlovable or I'm not worth being around, even though that's not true. But as a kid, you make up stories that are really inaccurate. But when we don't check them and we become adults, we're still carrying on those same stories that we made up when we were 6, 5, 2, 1, 9, whatever. And so fortunately, a lot of these misinterpretations of my past, what I experienced as like childhood stuff, I started working on and rewriting. And it was because I saw the influence of my mom doing the work that when I started to get to the age, I was like, cool, let me start studying and understanding myself and transforming the traumas I experienced and the misinterpretations or the stories that were inaccurate of what it meant, these childhood moments. And especially when they got to open up more and I got to see them, because as I told you, I like suppressed a lot of the memories. But then as I was older, I was ready to face them and do the work to heal it. And so I know I shared a lot, but when you asked that question, where was Steph back then? That's what was happening.
Wow. That's incredible, Stephanie. So seeing your mom really delve into self-development and personal development at such a young age, how did you see that start to impact her? And what were some of the noticeable shifts and changes that you noticed in her as a child, right? Being on the receiving end of her personal development work.
I think there was witnessing my mom's confidence increase, witnessing her become stronger and owning her true personal power that she had. Quick backstory about my mom. She didn't have parents raising her. When she was 5 years old, my grandfather had already left, her dad had already left for the United States. And when she was 5, my grandmother left. And so she and her 2 sisters were left in China to essentially fend for themselves. So she had a lot of deep trauma from her childhood. And then, my parents' marriage wasn't the easiest for the 2 of them. And so she had a lot of healing that needed to happen. And I saw a woman who, was never taught to own her worth, was never taught to own her power, be confident in who she is, to be able to have that piece to speak up for what she wanted, to stand up for herself. All of that started happening as she did the inner work. And it was so amazing and beautiful as a young girl to watch her evolution and to know what's possible and to be able to model that as well. Like she created the path or showed me a pathway that I was able to walk on as well to evolve and grow myself because of the courage that she had to first do it. It was truly inspirational.
It's so powerful, especially when we think about today. It's so much more common now to hear of moms who are doing personal development work, but there are still quite a few where it's very foreign, or they feel that, it means that there's something wrong with them or something's bad. And, it's so powerful to hear a successful adult's experience of being the child of a mother who took the time and energy to work on herself, because it truly is not just benefiting our own personal lives when we do the inner work. It really benefits those around us, especially the young ones around us who are looking to, to find their way in the world. It's extremely powerful.
Yeah. And honestly, again, this was like in the 80s, 90s. No one did it then. And it did have an imprint on me deep, and also for her. And I really believe that part of our soul's mission here is one, just to experience life, but we're also here to evolve and grow, right? And many people don't know, or they don't start the path until maybe a big crisis occurs later on in life. I got to see this at a very young age, and it was normalized so that it was like okay for me to step into that path and walk it because my mom had done it. And so it was huge. And I remember even when I would come home from college, just to visit my mom, and the room, then we moved different houses over the course of time, after my parents split. And I would open up the guest bedroom, or what was my room, multi-purpose. And when I'd open the closet, it was like the Barnes and Noble self-help section of books. Literally, it was like all these books. And I was like, wow, like my mom is so incredible. She's not someone who dabbles. She dives in. Like she immerses herself and she fully, goes for it. And she used to say to me, and she still kind of says it now. She's like, I'm the turtle, not the hare. Like I'm a little bit slower to learn and whatever she goes, but I just keep going. And eventually, we know the story of the turtle and the hare.
Yeah, that is incredible. So as a young adult, Stephanie, who's making her way into the world, did you find yourself sort of in these early days of going on to school thinking, okay, I'm going to go on and become an entrepreneur, and I feel really confident about building a business? Did you have side hustles during university to help you pay for things? What was it like for you as a young adult going from high school to university? What is it that you knew of the world, and how were you sort of looking at money? How'd you pay for school? What were the details?
I always had a deep desire to volunteer. So there's a lot of, I worked when I was younger, and it was for free at first because I was like, where can I volunteer? Even my best friend, Dina Lannerman, and I, best friend at the time, we tried to volunteer at the SPCA and got turned away because we were 9 years old. And we're like, no, we had to hold puppies and kittens. Like, what? But we got turned away. So I'd always been volunteering. But as I shared with you, when my parents split when I was 13, my brother was about to go off to college, and it was a big expense. And I think for my mom, she wanted me to be prepared. And so the moment I could get a worker's permit at 15 years old, I did.
Wow.
I remember going into Bank of America with my mom and opening up a joint account and organizing my account where it was like, okay, direct deposit in, and then some of it goes to a CD, some of it goes into my savings, and then some goes into checking. So it was like automatic then. And I started working, and
you put money into a CD. How old were you when you were putting money into a CD?
15.
Oh my gosh. Okay. As said by very few other people at the age of 15, like I'm going to put money into a CD. Okay. Continue, Stephanie.
Well, so I cannot take credit for it. It was my mother, because as I said, I was too young to have a bank account. So I had to walk in with B of A with her and co-sign and do a joint account together. And she helped guide me on that. My mom is brilliant. She manages my my portfolio, my investment portfolio, and she crushes. Like literally just doubled in the past 6 months. My mom had a set amount of money that she made. And she was, as I shared, raising 2 kids in a wealthy neighborhood and wasn't able to borrow money from the people around her. And it was highly stressful. So she had to figure out, how do I grow my money? And that's when she started studying the stock market. And this has been since I was a kid. She's been learning it, studying it so that she could invest and grow her money in order to stretch the dollars that she was making. So she did that also when I was young, and was the smart one that got me investing into a CD. I don't even know what it was, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But that all comes from my mom. But at 15, my first job was working at a deli, and my shift was at 6 a.m. So in the summers, when my friends were waking up at 1, 2 o'clock, I was getting off an 8-hour shift of work.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then I would go hang out with my friends. And this is where that Asian work ethic comes in, where I'm like, just handle it. Cool. 6 a.m. I show up at, 5:45 to open the deli and get everything prepared. I learned hard work and at a very young age. And when I got to college, I was much more prepared financially, right, to be able to get myself through school. I also worked like 3 different jobs when I was in college. I was a tour guide on campus. I got really good at walking backwards and talking and guiding a group around the campus. So, master at walking backwards and talking. Also, in the summers, I actually got a job at Merrill Lynch.
Wait, what? Amazing. Doing what?
So I was just helping one of the VPs there, and he would tell me, he's like, hey, I want to put on a seminar with qualifying with these people who make this much money. I want to have 30 people there, figure it out. And so I was opening up the phone book, cold calling, vetting people, getting them to this free seminar where they would teach some money stuff and essentially sell them in. And this is a crazy part, is I was in the pit with all the young new people who were, had just passed their financial exams and were trying to get a job at Merrill, but they had to hit a certain number of investments before they could get a job. So I'm in the pit with these young guys, and this one guy, I cannot remember his name, but I see his face, and he's blonde and around 5'8", and he jumps up and he looks over the little wall that separated us, and he goes, Kwong, I have a tip for you. And I was like, what? This is 1993. He goes, invest in Amazon.com.
No.
So sorry, no, this is college, 97. My dates are wrong. Look at me. And so I remember going home and I'm like, no, I got a tip, Amazon.com. And she goes, you have $5,000 to throw into it? And I was like, no. And then I see Jeff Bezos talking about 10 years later going, if you invested $5,000 back then, you'd be worth like a million.
Oh my God.
That obviously that was my path. But then my third job was I stalked a woman. I was reading an article in Elle magazine, and it was like women who turned their passions into careers. And this woman was good at throwing parties, and then she started a party throwing company. And so I found her in the phone book, called her up, and was like, "Can I intern for you?" And she said no, because she didn't even know what it was for. And then I like followed up again, and I was like, "Can I just take you out to coffee?" And then I did. Ended up getting a job with her. And this is when the big tech boom was happening. And so I started helping her put events on. And then eventually she trusted me, and she was billing $80 an hour and was paying me $40, and I was covering everything. So imagine at that time in college, I'm making $40 an hour. It's not like a lot of people. It's huge. Yeah. So I was making some pretty good money, walking backwards and talking, working girl lunch in the summer times. And then
talk about exposure stuff. I mean, you're really exposing yourself to different kinds of people, opportunities. It's so exciting. And so upon the heels then, right? So now you're in school, you're getting ready to graduate. Did you think you were going to be an event planner, a tour guide, a stockbroker? I mean, what was young Stephanie planning on a career in?
Oh, girl, shockingly, I thought I wanted to go into acting. Isn't that crazy? I'd been a dancer ever since I was a little girl. Like my mom started me when I was I had a passion for dancing. And in my senior year of college, I went to Spain. I studied abroad, and the family there, I remember I was like, look, I'm Chinese. Here's what I can do. I can be an attorney. I can be a doctor. I can be a lawyer. I can be an engineer. That's my path. And I just love performing. And they said, who do you spend the most time with every single day? And the trick answer was yourself. So you're willing to disappoint yourself so that you can get your parents' approval, make them happy when you don't spend that much time with them. But you're with.
Oh.
So I was like, whoa. So I went back to the United States, packed up my stuff, went to LA. My brother was already living there. He went to UCLA. And so I was like, I'm obsessed with my brother. I've always looked up to him, and went to LA and thought I could pursue a career in entertainment. Quickly learned it was not my thing. BS'd my way into a PR job. Then was doing that for a while until, and then I started getting into entertainment on the behind the camera. And then one day just had a come to Jesus moment where I was just like, man, this isn't filling my soul, working on production and trying to pitch TV shows and raising money for independent feature films. It was just not my thing. And to cut the story very short, I ended up falling into becoming a life coach. I mean, I'd already been studying and doing the inner work all this time. In college, I studied psychology and economics at UC Berkeley. And then when I got to LA, I was still just immersing myself in my own healing. And then in 2008, met a young girl who was struggling with an eating disorder and started helping her. And then my landlord was like, hey, we're moving back into our place in Venice Beach. I lived there for 7 years. I was so devastated. I tell this girl that I'm losing my home, and she's like, well, then come to Italy to coach me.
Oh, Stephanie, wow. So how many years had you spent sort of in this entertainment space before the universe allowed you to throw your hands up in the air?
Yeah, it was like 2000. I got to LA around like 2000, 2001, 2000. And then I left it 2008.
And so during that, 7-year time period, certainly jobs in entertainment when you're young don't pay much money. It's difficult to sort of get around. LA is kind of a crazy place. I lived there for about 10 years. It's not the easiest thing to navigate, certainly without resources. So how did you sort of manage for these first 7 years money? How were you able to draw down on any savings that you had from before? Were these jobs able to sort of pay? I don't even think in entertainment you get offered things like a 401k or any sort of other financial benefit. So this early part of your life, how did you sort of treat yourself with finances? What was available to you? How did you think about it?
Yeah, so I always continued to work multiple jobs. As I mentioned, I BS'd my way into a PR job that was actually paying really well. I was a West Coast rep for this product that a PR firm in the East Coast had. And then I was also working a job at the Sports Club LA, which was like the heyday in the early 2000s. It was like every celebrity, every producer, every famous athlete came to one place. So I was making minimum wage there, but I was making insane connections. And that's why I was there, the people that I met. And that's also how I got into entertainment. And those people that I was friends with, they made sure I had like stable money. So it was ish. And then when I would raise money for independent feature films, you get big checks. But coming back to the money piece, like, what I modeled when I was a kid. Yes, everyone's hearing my story now. Like, whoa, how'd you have a CD at 15? And, you had all these jobs and you made $40 an hour in college working for this events woman, right? What I witnessed, Shama, was like a lot of money and then a crash, right? When my parents divorced. So even though I worked my butt off, and I had a lot of different jobs. Some paid really well, some maybe that didn't, but I used it really to build connections, et cetera, I found myself in a lot of highs and lows financially because I got really good at making it, but then I was real good at spending it or losing it to some degree. And then all of a sudden it'd go up again and down again and up again and down again. So I think because of the imprinting of what money was for me, also there were feelings of unworthiness, also feelings of like, money is used to manipulate or to get what you need. There was this rejection I had at times of it, which is the times when all of a sudden it would crash. And so it wasn't a steady like, oh, good for you, girl. You got all the money and you made such good money and you were smart at investing. And no. So in my 20s, it was a roller coaster of, feast and famine. It was like, boom, a lot of money and then a lot of money. And so I didn't have a great relationship to it, even though I had witnessed it at a young age, but I also witnessed what it looks like to not have. And then I was good at creating it and I would work hard to make it, but then I would lose it. Then I can rebuild it, but then I lose it again, right? But it was because of all my unconscious programming that I had that didn't enable me to hold it, to grow it, and to keep it, right? Or keep it and grow it, and keep it and grow it and keep it and grow it and keep it and grow it, and then also share it with the people that I care about because that's meaningful for me. And so that was the cycle that I picked up as a child from my, lack of true understanding of what it meant. But what I had made up about what money means affected me as an adult. And it took some deep healing of feeling that I was truly worthy of having financial abundance, to keep it and grow it and to be able to share it from a place of overflow, not from a place of lack or needing to prove myself or trying to look good in front of my friends. But it was really like a true place of generosity. I also had to work through the feeling of that I could actually have success too, right? That it really was something I was worthy of.
Deservingness. You're deserving.
Yes, that is the key. If you feel unworthy or undeserving of having what you want, you will literally push it away. Or if you get it, you will sabotage it and let it go. It's your wiring. It is your self-image. It is your self-identity. It's the beliefs that you carry about yourself, around what money means, etc., or in any area of your life, but I know we're focused on money, that determines that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, classic example, they follow all these lotto winners, usually who are the people that buy lotto tickets, people who maybe don't have as much, right? They're living a bit more in scarcity or lack. So then someone might win and it's like windfall of cash. But if they don't feel worthy or their identity is of a poor person, not a rich person, when they track these people who have won the lotto, I think it's like 5 to 7 years, they're back to where they were financially or even worse.
That's just wild, Stephanie. I mean, the wiring and the imprinting and those really formative years, I believe just are the way we operate until we have some sort of crisis of faith, and what am I doing with my life? Why am I where I am? And how is it that things feel wrong, but I don't know what they are? And, it starts to things start to crack open, and you're pivoting, and sort of this openness that leads you to coaching is extremely powerful because, I find that those who come from the greatest pain, who realize their pain, are able to really step into these spaces of truly, first and foremost, supporting themselves and being able to really heal themselves. And then taking it a step further and saying, I'm not just going to heal myself, but I'm now going to support, evangelize, and help other people heal themselves and sort of be that background to it. But it's also quite risky from a career standpoint, especially at that time when you decided to go on and start a coaching practice. There weren't a lot of people talking about coaches. Being a coach was relatively unheard of. And most people would have been like, huh? What are you talking about? Are you a therapist? So how did you start to, in the early days of saying, okay, I'm going to go down this path? How did you first and foremost decide to pay for this and support yourself? Because that is not easy, to take an investment against yourself. So far, you're working for other people, you're kind of pulling in resources, but now you're investing in yourself, and then take it a step further, starting a business, right? So early days, unpack it. What was it like?
Yeah, so it was wild and it was a journey, right? And I want to say something before I dive into that story of it, but because you mentioned, gosh, there's so much in our formative years that impact our adult life. It's all what impacts our adult life. Anything that's not working in your life is probably because of something that happened in your past. And the work becomes about rewiring it, right? It's like upgrading the software, because we created a software system that we were running as a child. Well, guess what? As an adult, that software as a kid doesn't work anymore. We got to upgrade it. So that's the work. And that's what I was able to do for myself. And then, of course, because I was just helping this young girl who had an eating disorder, she was like, whoa, you've been helping me, come coach me. So it was actually, it's very unusual, because this young woman that I helped, she was Italian. She was from Cortina d'Ampezzo, which is like the Aspen of Italy, very wealthy family. And when she told me she wanted me to go with her, I was like, look, I want a contract. Like, I want to have it solid. And so she's like, yeah. She's like, I've been talking to my mom about you. And she connected me with her mom. And I made a crazy deal. I'll just say it. It was $10K cash per month. And they covered all room and board. They paid for my storage unit in LA. She wanted my dog to come with me, so they paid for all the vet bills to get him qualified to fly to Italy, paid for his dog bag, paid for everything. And when I got to Italy, she's so cute, because I was teaching her about integrity and being her word. And I remember one day I went to go get gelato, and she throws cash at the cashier. And I'm like, no. I was like, Veronica, I got this. And she goes, no, I have integrity. She goes, full room, full board. I pay for it. And I was like, all right, you go with your integrity, girl. And so I didn't pay any money for 6 months. And I just was stocking away 10 grand every month.
Oh my gosh. And so how old were you when this opportunity from the universe came to you?
It was like 31.
Wow, Stephanie, how amazing. Talk about a sign, right? When it's like things align, all the doors open, and all of a sudden it's like, now you have some savings, right? And young to start building some savings, adding it to the CD funds, and you're getting this incredible life experience. And so when you came back from Italy or finished that experience, was the idea like, I'm now ready to take on more clients, I'm ready to start building this? Was it full go at that point?
Yeah, it was full go. So, the thing about me, and fortunately, just like my mom, all in, burn the boats, right? You got to go for it. You have to take that chance on yourself. And also watching my dad, he was a shark. He was killer at what he did. He worked his butt off. He was really strategic. He was smart. Fortunately, I have that in my blood. Also, it's part of our culture, right? Chinese people can be pretty intense when it comes to hard work. I went all in and I got formally trained as a coach. And in that first training that I did, in order to get certified, you had to have 100 paid hours of coaching. Now, it could be $1, but you had to get paid for every session. So for 100 different clients or client sessions, get some money. So as I shared with you, I am a big networker. I love connecting people and meeting people, connecting people, cultivating a relationship. And I was like, I have to hurry up and get these hours so I can get certified. So I sent out an email to everybody I knew. And I was like, hey, I'm in this coach certification program. I have to hit these hours. I'm willing to offer up to 3 sessions at $25 an hour. Well, I had 86 people respond and say, I'll take it.
Oh my gosh, you're in business.
And so, yeah, I started coaching my butt off and getting my reps in. And, I was fortunately making money and not just doing pro bono sessions, because I know a lot of people start out as a coach just to get testimonials or to build. They will do pro bono work and also to cultivate their skill. I, out the gate, was like, boom, people paid me. And because it was helpful for some, and coaching was still new at the time, people are like, wow, I can talk to someone and they have some way to help me move through my problems. Let's keep going. And after those 3 sessions, I started raising my prices. It wasn't a big jump. It was like to $50 an hour. And then eventually I bumped it to 75, then 100, then 125, 150. I remember when I hit the 250 mark, I was like, "Ooh, I'm rolling in it." And then I had a guy, and throughout this whole entire time, I'm studying, I'm training, I'm building my skill. And towards the end of my career of coaching with people one-on-one, because I'd done like groups, I've been inside of treatment centers for addiction rehab to women with BPD. I really immersed myself to learn and cultivate my skill working with different populations. But towards the end, or not the end of my career, but like the last 6 years, I really hyper-focused in on high-performing people, like the top 1%, those who had influence or those who were playing the game at the high level. The reason why was I was like, how can I have the greatest impact? It's like, oh, people who have influence, there's a trickle down of the people that, they lead, and they're just easier to work with. They showed up. They were not complainers. I offered like, hey, you can have access to email in between. No one took me up on that. And how I raised my price there was, this guy was a friend client, very successful, late 20s, multimillionaire. And he had an addiction to porn. And he was like, I want to get rid of this because I want to build a relationship with a woman. Can you help me? And I was like, yep. And he's like, great, send me what your rates are. And I told him, it's like $250. Thinking I was like, oh, $250. And he goes, no, I'm paying you for the results. He's like, I'm not going to pay $250. He goes, how about this? I'll pay you $2,500 for 4 sessions, but you better get me the results. And I was like, okay. When he said that, where it was about the results, not the session, I literally felt like my DNA changed. It was like, I was like, okay, this is like, there are people who will pay this amount and they want the result. So he gave me that. And then after his first session, I remember I waited a week and then I contacted him. I was like, hey, do you want to schedule your next session? He goes, no, I'm good. He's like, he fixed it. He goes, I wanted the result. I didn't want the sessions. You got it done in one shot. Keep the money. And that was a full game changer for me, because I was like, oh, and that was when I was like, hey, these are the people I want to work with. And so for the last 6 years of me like working with people before I launched Rapid Rewire, I was charging like $5,000 for 4 sessions a month. And then, as I told you, people had email access in between. We never used it. And, if you held 10 clients a month, you're doing pretty good. You want to bump it to 50.
You are crushing it. Okay. So you're stacking cash. Where is it going? So like, how is life evolving? Where are you investing it? Where are you spending it? I mean, this is so exciting. I'm so proud of you. It's like really like so incredible. But where's the money going? Tell me.
Yeah. So, building a business, you got to reinvest into your business. So I did have a team member who was working alongside me, initially a VA, who then evolved into someone who became my right hand. And then she left, and then I just hiring, firing. Also investing into all the tech that I needed, whether I'd hire, graphic designers it's just all the resources that I had to invest into my business, depending on what I needed at the time. Also, someone just, making sure the client customer journey was solid, so they would do customer support and whatnot. And then I also did run group programs too. So it was like all the marketing for that, running ads. It was just a lot of different things that would just get reinvested back into the business to help to grow and scale it. So that's where a lot of the cash went. And then, handed over to my mama, who was running my portfolio for me, investment portfolio.
That's incredible. And so for how many years now has your mom been running your investing portfolio?
I mean, a very long time since I was younger. So she was on the joint account that I first opened, right, at B of A, my checking savings. And I'm going to be mindful of what I share. But essentially, she had access to my cash. And I learned later on, because she had taken some of that money initially to use because she needed it to at one point, but then she replenished it. And then that's when she took it and started to invest on my behalf. I learned about that when I was in my 20s, that she'd been doing that from the money that was there. And when I found that out, that's when I started what I had, and I would take chunks of it and just give to her. It was like she would just grow it on my behalf. And
Wow.
so for a while.
That's so powerful. So mom's got your back. She's growing the portfolio. You are crushing it in this coaching business. And then what lights go off that go, wait a second, my time is finite here. And coaching people is a direct correlation to my time in the world. And I can actually do some powerful work truly at scale. When did that sort of dawn on you, and how did you start to really step into this true sort of entrepreneurship role that you're in today?
Yeah. So it found me. I didn't find it. Quite honestly,
Yet again, Stephanie, yet again. I mean, the universe keeps finding you and saying, hey, here's the next thing. Here's the next thing.
There's story after story after story I could tell you. You're just getting a small fraction of it. But you guys, if you're listening, if you just keep your heart open and you just trust, and when you get the whisper, listen to it and follow it. You have to. Because for me, quite honestly, during the so I have a really fun love story, but essentially met a guy in LA in March 2nd, 2020. After knowing him for 2 weeks, he invited me to come quarantine for 2 weeks in Colorado. And I was like, okay, I'd been single for 5 years. I drove my car out to Colorado, and it's been 4 years now. I have not left. But during that time, during the pandemic, I was like just in this love bubble. But then I also at that time was starting to it was challenging for me to continue to work with people one-on-one. I'd already been doing it for 14 years. It's like, I can only listen to people's, or 12 years, I can only listen to people's stuff for so long, right? Because as an empath, it starts to impact you. Yes, I know everyone can say like, but Steph, you're making such good money. Like, how could you say no to that? I think after a while, when it runs its course, and I had no idea what was next. And I ended up getting pregnant with my partner at the end of the year, December 2020. We were not trying to have a kid. He did not want more kids at that time. I did, because I hadn't had it. He already had 2 kids and I didn't have any of my own. So when I got pregnant, I was like, and then at 9.5 weeks, lost the baby.
Oh.
And yeah, it was devastating. And I know grief. I've had people close to me die, but this time something was different because over time, I kept progressively getting worse, where in my ability to function on the day-to-day. So as an entrepreneur, you know this, you can't just take a vacation for 5 months. I got stuff and I got things to do. And yet over time, it was like I couldn't look at social media because everyone in 2021 was announcing they were pregnant, and it was super triggering. If I went outside and I saw a baby or a pregnant woman or any sort of baby paraphernalia, now I'm like bawling my eyes out in public, uncontrollably, unconsolably. I had days where I just didn't even want to get out of bed. I was struggling with suicidal ideation. It was dark, real dark. And even with everything I was trained in, NLP, hypnosis, somatic experiencing, breath work, EFT, whatever, I wasn't getting better. And then even with this incredible community of coaches, therapists, healers, shamans that I accumulated over those years of being a coach, still nothing helping. And then I got connected through my doctor, to these tools that are the rapid rewire method, and to my co-founder. And literally in one 60-minute session, process the trauma, the miscarriage, drain the emotional charge that I couldn't even feel or find sadness or grief in my body anymore. It was gone. I remember cussing at him because I'm like, I was known for getting rapid results. Like, what was this? And it's never come back. I feel like other people have bigger emotional reactions than I do when I talk about the miscarriage because it's been integrated, right? What does integration mean? I have fully processed it and now placed that experience where it belongs in the past. That's where it's filed. that past experience no longer has to affect my current state of being or my future that's coming up. And this goes back to the thing that you and I were talking about before. So much of our past experiences are like childhood stuff are still impacting us in the present moment, which then means it's impacting the results we create into the future.
That's right.
So that's why we have to do the work to integrate those traumatic experiences, the misinterpretations, AKA negative, disempowering stories that we hold on to about ourselves or the world or what's possible, what we can create or what we deserve. All of that has to be rewired. And fortunately, that experience I was so blown away with. I was like, and then I was like, okay, I got to keep working with these tools. I've never seen anything like this in all my years as a coach and as a client, because I still would constantly get sessions and learn from people and I was still working on myself all that time, even as a coach. And I'd never experienced anything like this. I'm like, okay, I was known as a secret weapon to these top 1%ers. I've never seen anything. Can we keep going? So I kept working with these protocols. And week 7 of consistently working with them, I heard the divine command, you are meant to bring these tools into the world.
Wow. Okay. So this is so incredible. So now bringing these tools into the world, because having a coaching business, being a solopreneur supported by operational executives, people who can help mobilize your idea is really different than saying, okay, now we're launching this full business, this process. And not only are you just launching a business, you're launching a whole new sort of methodology, technique, which requires education. It requires so many other levers and tools. So you and your co-founder, did you guys say, okay, we're going to invest a certain amount of money into this to get it off the ground? Was it organic, sort of how you guys came together and split responsibilities? How did it feel to enter into a co-founding partnership? And what was it like to start to formalize the process?
Yeah, so it was dicey in the beginning, to being honest, right? Like, I think you get excited, you dive in feet first, and then you start to realize, whoa, what are people's skill sets? And then how much equity do we actually have because of that? And so it was like a lot of working out what that looks like. And fortunately, we found our lanes, right? I do the business building side. I still have jumped in to teach and facilitate at times, but he is our master trainer and coach. He is the guy who is a master trainer of trainers. He knows these tools inside out. So he runs all of our education side, and then I run the business side. A lot of that, because of that, it was a lot of my resources that I dumped in. So the capital was a lot of me. The relational capital was mine. Again, I mean, I love to connect with people. So it was like, it made sense. And even he said, he's like, effing everybody. I was like, well, I do my best. And so it was like a lot of that helped to get this off the ground. And then, fortunately, I did have the finances to hire a team to support. While it was small, it's small but mighty, and we were able to move this forward. Yet it was really hard too, and we still have difficult days, Shama. I mean, it was repivoting, and I went from having my own personal brand to now building the Rapid Rewire brand. Now our face is on it right now just because people want some personal touch, but eventually go into the background, and it's going to become just the brand in general. And also it was difficult because now I'm marketing to a whole new audience. I haven't eaten Ellis from before, but it was different people I served when I was working with them directly to help them with their own challenges. But now we're training people in a set of transformational tools that they learn to use for themselves or to help another person. So it has been 3.5 years now, and we've had some major wins. And there have been days before you and I hit record on this podcast where I was like, girl, you have those days where you just want to sit on the couch and watch trash TV and stuff ice cream in your face.
That's right. And so as you're sort of thinking about, leaving a very powerful, high performing private practice and sort of reassessing, your own personal finances now, right? Because now you're building a much larger business. You're building something that has the potential for you to eventually one day step out of this role and be able to have this business functioning underneath you. How have you been looking, and how have you and your co-founder sort of been looking at paying yourselves? I mean, how does it work now? And what has it been like, if at all, if you've seen any adjustment, what has it been like to sort of reconcile this new version of yourself based on sort of the more recent past, which was operating from a very different economic model?
Yeah. So fortunately, I have very smart people around me, people who are highly strategic, insane biz dev, and I've sought advice from them. Also, when you ask me, where'd your money go before too, is I hired a lot of coaches and mentors to guide me even when I was building my personal brand. Now it's no different. And having them help me to structure, how do I make sure I get, paid also? What's that amazing book where it was like, get it, but it's like that you get paid first, like you ensure that money goes into your account so that your basic necessities are paid for and you're not freaking out at the end of the day. Very smart people around me guiding me on how to build something that I've never built before.
That's incredible. What does the bench, who are the roles, right? What are the roles on the bench that you have filled that you suggest are, maybe some of these tools to the keys to your mental, emotional, and financial success? If someone were to sort of fill the holes on the bench, what would they be with?
Yeah, well, someone who is just good with strategy, right? How they've actually built a business similar to mine and helps me shortcut. Here are different models of how you can grow and scale this to a certain level. Cool, got it. Now we're, tracking it on Traction using EOS and making sure that we have our team synced up to here's how it's going to look on the marketing side to try, here's the way to position it, et cetera, et cetera. So having someone on my team who is a marketing strategist, someone who is a biz dev strategist, someone also who is, as you mentioned, on the mental emotional side. Because again, before we hit record, the bottom line is running and building and growing and scaling a business. You got to grow and scale yourself too.
Yeah. Boom. That's the big thing, right? You are in, life is in session and you're coming up against all of your own stuff. So Stephanie, as you're sort of thinking about now legacy building, the impact that you're having on the world today, the impact I would say that you're going to have over the next 50 plus years, where do you want to leave your mark? And what does a satisfying life look like for you?
Thank you for saying that. This time it truly is legacy. I think when I started my personal brand too, there was still a lot of wounding of wanting to be seen. And now this is just true contribution. How can we empower humanity with these amazing cutting edge tools to break through their own inner barriers, their own limitations, and rewire themselves to align with who they want to be and what they want to achieve, right? Huge stuff. And for me, it's really seeing that the long game plan is I'm turning this into a global company. I don't want this just to have, people in North America to have access to it. Everybody around the world gets to have access to these tools that you can use for yourself to help another, or even, we facilitated groups with them. Also, at some point is, when we have built up enough and we can hire even more sub coaches, that we can pay them where we're not making money, but there's a side where we can help underprivileged or underserved communities also have access to this. I don't think that the ability to be empowered and to liberate yourself and to, rewire yourself should be only for those who can afford it. So we want to create an arm where now underprivileged and underserved communities can have access to the training, but we can also hire sub coaches who are there to interact with them and guide them as they use the tools. That's going to be at a different financial level, right? Where I can pay for people, but we're not making money. This is really just to give the money to pay for people to support these communities. And being totally honest, at some point, when we hit certain benchmarks of where the company is, as far as I can take it, financially in terms of also scale, I actually want to hire a true, not that I'm not, but like a CEO who lives, breathes, sleeps growing and scaling companies and has done it on a global scale. You know, I'm not delusional to think that, and maybe I can do it, but do I want to? No. Where's my first passion and love is training and teaching and facilitation. That's what I was doing. And I want to be able to just zip around the world to train and being in front of people in these rooms, watching them become liberated literally in front of my eyes, and still have my finger on the pulse, of course, on the business side, but bringing in key players that can take over and bring the company to places that I have not done before. And nor do I want, it's like the walking the path, right? I had my mom walk the path before me so I could walk it. I'll walk the path so far, and I have people who've walked it before me now. But at some point, I want to go on this other path that feels more fulfilling and soul-filling, and then let someone else take over the business side, because that's more soul-filling for them too.
Oh, I love that, Stephanie. How beautiful. You know, two of my favorite questions to ask, one of them is really around joy and money. You know, we spent a lot of time talking about investing in oneself. We spent a lot of time talking about mom being the chief investment officer. And we've talked a lot about sort of the ways in which money can really impact things, right? The formative years of our lives, and truly how that relates ourselves with money. And really, money is how we showcase values and make big decisions. And it's so powerful. And it is also full of a lot of joy and fun. And so, my darling, what are some of your most favorite ways to be able to spend your money that brings you a lot of joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment?
Oh my gosh, easy. Travel. That is huge for me, is to travel the world, live in other countries. So I dump a lot of cash there. Also, I love food, and I will travel for food. I will spend whatever for food. It's those experiences versus things. I like nice things, but to me, it's about creating memories, which then takes me to the other piece that I love, is spoiling the people I love with huge surprises of gifts that it's going to blow their mind, and more on the experience side than on the material side. But that brings me so much joy to watch people light up and be shocked to receive something that maybe they couldn't have gotten for themselves, but I was able to provide that for them. It's huge. That's where I would.
It's so generous. It's so like heart-centered and generous. You know, someone asked me the other day what I like to do with money, and I said, I really love diamonds.
Okay. The hint, you're like, so if you like giving gifts and surprising people,
I love diamonds. Yeah. Stephanie, everyone who's listening loves to support the women who are on the show. We love to support them because you guys and you are up to big things and changing the world and looking at really being able to help support people become in alignment with their purpose, with who they're meant to be on this planet. And so we all need support. We're all calling in things. We're all looking for things. What can the audience do today to help move the needle for you? What are you calling in? What do you need?
I would say it's great collaborators, companies out there, any sort of organizations who believe in the well-being of their people, and we can come in and speak and share our tools there, or people who our work is complementary to what they're already doing, right? So that relationship building where it'll help us move our mission further faster because there's an audience sitting there that we can present our work in front of. I think that would be huge. And then honestly, if you're listening to this, I want to have an impact on you. Go to our website, download our freebie. I'm sure you've heard a bit of like, oh, there's these cool tools that can get rid of your problems and inner barriers fast. Go have your own direct experience so that we can impact you by having that moment of liberation. We have a freebie on our website. Download it. It'll take you through one of our cutting edge processes. And when you have a powerful shift and transformation, let us know, because that's us doing our part, which is serving humanity in creating more empowerment and more liberation, inner liberation.
The magnificent and incredible Stephanie Kwong. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today on Getting Rich Together. I'm grateful to know you. I'm so proud of the work you're doing in this world, and I'm so excited to see your legacy unfold. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Getting Rich Together. Please take a minute to subscribe, and if you like this episode, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend who is ready to elevate their financial future. Until next time, let's keep getting rich together.